This special episode of the Geek Box is an audio recording of the GFW Radio Reunion panel that occurred at the 2013 PAX Prime convention in early September. For the two of you who have no idea what I'm talking about, this panel reunites the editors and writers of Games for Windows, the official magazine, who also hosted an associated podcast for the video game website oneup.com from 2006 to 2008. Special thanks to Armchair Empire's Aaron Simmer for organizing the whole thing, IGN's James Faulkner for recording it, and all the awesome fans who attended. Enjoy.
Well, hello and welcome to the GFW Radio podcast. I think I speak for all these guys when I say that we didn't really think anyone was going to come. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
So thank you all for being here. We know it's the end of the show. We know you're tired. We're tired. So thanks. How many people are catching a flight tonight? A lot of people. Thank you. We hope you don't miss your flight. If you have to walk out, it's okay.
I hope you all are able to get a job soon.
That's right. So why don't we, everybody, introduce yourselves? As always, we'll start on that end. Put your fucking smartphone away.
Oh. I'm Anthony Gallegos. Hi.
I am Robert Ashley.
I'm Sean Elliott, and my contingency plan, if there was only one row filled, was to take you all out for drinks and then to Showgirls tonight, and I'd privately tell you about every story I know from a friend that used to work there cleaning the booth.
I'm Jeff Green.
Yeah. I'm Ryan Scott.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, what the fuck? You guys love him now. Bullshit.
And I'm Sean Malloy, and I don't get my own mic.
Yeah.
We have one order of business. We got to thank Aaron Simmer, who could not be here today. He's the guy who actually made us do this. And he's been on us for like 3 years to do it. We've bailed twice. We're finally here, and he couldn't make it. And his website is called Armchair Empire. He's been doing it for 13 years. Super nice, super smart guy. His website is armchairempire.com. Am I forgetting anything? Do we want to...
It was also ae.infinite.com, and then he also has started another site that is, if you want to find it, you could search for Game Enthusiast Press Awards.
Right, I think he gives awards to, like, game press people who write good stuff. Is that it?
You haven't been on the site?
Yeah, no. Sorry, Aaron.
Whoa.
All right, so we usually, when we did the podcast 5 years ago, we did not prepare. This time you can see we prepared. We got a list of topics here.
Yeah.
Right? We worked it out.
We met at the food court of a mall close by, and Jeff had like Panda Express, and I had a coffee from McDonald's, and we wrote down like 10 words.
Yeah, why did you get coffee at McDonald's, actually? There's like 10 Starbucks within 2 blocks here.
I think the thing is that Robert tries to remember where he came from.
There's like a mythology in my family that when I was brought home from the hospital, that they fed me a regurgitated McDonald's cheeseburger. This is a real thing, because I was obsessed with McDonald's when I was a kid, and my mom swears up and down that on the way home from the hospital, because she couldn't breastfeed, that she chewed up a McDonald's cheeseburger and spit it into my mouth like a fucking mama bird. For real.
We could probably do an hour of Robert Ashley's childhood, right? Couldn't we? Because
it would take way more than an hour.
We talked about this last night. We weren't entirely sober, but we heard some pretty scary stories.
Yeah.
Like your Uncle Bubba? Do we want to talk about Uncle Bubba?
Yeah. I have an Uncle Bubba. Well, this all came up because Jeff makes fun of me because I'm sort of a bougie bobo.
I usually say pretentious
person.
Douche is what I say.
You dress really nice and you order really fancy drinks all the time.
And for reference, it was yesterday, right? We went to get morning coffee. Like, I was expecting a maximum 5-minute walk. We did peregrinated for 45 minutes and ended up at a place where they offered us a $15, I shit you not, cup of drip coffee. But you had a special name for it.
It's not a special. I didn't invent. It's a pour over. They pour the water over the coffee. You're just showing how you don't know anything about coffee. This is anywhere.
I'm currently from
pretentious douche, like I said.
Yeah.
Anyway, do you recognize Robert Ashley at this point? Because I didn't even recognize.
I've had a lot of work.
We haven't seen each other in a couple of years.
Yeah.
And you got the whole Clark Kent glasses and the short haircut.
I have been really making out.
You've embraced the douchiness.
Every girl who's dressed up as like Space Channel 5 Ula or whatever. You guys remember that girl? Yeah. I've made out with every single girl like that. Yeah, so Jeff was making fun of me for being like a sort of fussy snob or something, and I needed to explain to him that I'm actually from a very redneck bringing up, and I talked to him about my Uncle Bubba, who is literally a wonderful man, a like 56-year-old man who lives on disability in a trailer in North Dallas. No, but he's a wonderful guy. He used to always take me on all my childhood like Cub Scout trips and stuff. But I talked to him on the phone, and he's always trying to like get me into Jesus, and he doesn't understand. You know, he's like, "Do you tell Bubba about your like fancy coffee and stuff?" And no, I mean, I don't talk to him about that stuff. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like as long as I stay connected to that dude, that I'm not the pretentious douche.
I was going to say, I feel like the way it came up conversation yesterday was you got really defensive about it. Because you were like, I'm not stuck up, I'm not fancy, I got a checkered past too. And then you proceeded to tell us these really somewhat occasionally vulgar stories from your past and offended everyone at the really fancy hotel that we were at. Yeah. Like there were people straight up scorning at us, and I saw one group ask the waiter to tell us to leave. And you were completely oblivious to it. Yeah. And they also didn't help that at the time Jeff was laying on Jeff was sitting on the floor of this hotel lobby, just like talking to us like we were having like a powwow around like a campfire.
Yeah.
This was the W, if you're familiar with the W.
Wait, they told us to leave?
No. A group of people asked them to tell us to leave because we were not classing up the joint.
So what's the fucking story? I wasn't there, so I'm part of the audience right now. What?
Well, I mean, I don't know what the context.
Make me want me to.
I don't know what the context was. I mean, what did we talk about Bubba? Like, what do you remember about Bubba?
He drank a lot.
No, that's my dad.
It's like a test now. I have to.
That's my dad.
Was I paying attention?
You're confusing this.
Huh? Oh, your dad.
Bubba doesn't drink. He smokes a lot of weed.
Oh, the weed.
Yeah.
Right.
He's like a Texas hippie. I don't know is there anyone from Texas here? Yeah. Do you guys know any people who are of the age to be kind of countercultural in Texas? Which means basically like they love to fish and they have a lot of guns and they vote for Republicans, but they like haven't had an hour without smoking weed since like 1975. Yeah. That's my Uncle Bubba. And he loves Jesus and he loves to make an awesome barbecue and he calls me on the phone and he's like, one of these days you're going to be such a good daddy. You know? He's always trying to encourage me. Yeah. I don't know.
So anyway, how do we get on this?
I don't know.
We haven't seen each other in 2 years, and this is what we're talking about.
Yeah, we all moved away to different places, and we don't really know each other that well.
We actually don't get to talk to each other very often, so this is sort of a reunion for us, right?
Yeah.
We tried to do this a couple times, and we couldn't really get it together, mostly because of you. Mostly because of BioShock Infinite, which I guess we're not talking about, right?
No, not at all. Can't.
Okay. Great game, Sean.
I can tell you about everything that happened around where it was made, though.
Do that.
Okay. Yeah, you guys. I've told a lot of people about Quincy, Massachusetts. It's like if you've seen any of the movies that come from that area, like South Boston, all the stereotypes are true. Downstairs, like the nearest businesses, like it's important. This is going to go somewhere, and I need to paint a picture of the environment, before I can like give you the specifics. Downstairs, we've got a joke shop. They sell weed paraphernalia and like Obama shirts, which is surprising. They got CDs from a guy called Rhyme Boss available. There's a poster in the window. But anyway, I've quit smoking now. I'm not looking for applause, but I used to smoke out front. And
wait a minute.
You
didn't quit smoking.
I did too.
You have a vaporizer in your pocket.
That's not smoke. That's vape.
Okay.
That's not pee. That's squirt.
Yeah. All right, go on.
Everywhere we go, Sean has to like duck out every 5 minutes to use this like steampunk implement he has. Show everyone. Show
like
everyone this
whistle.
fucking thing. Show them.
It's tucked away. Anthony calls it teledildonics. So like, I just had to run with this last night and tell him that like. He was adamant that I was pleasing like one single person with every puff, but instead I told him that it was a different person. It was that effective. But yeah, this giant like mortifying lightsaber is like been a part of like their life. But anyway, so to give you a picture of the place, like out front, the building's always surrounded by, suspect figures. One time I was out there smoking, and a guy comes up and asks for a cigarette. It happens all the time. If anyone's smoked, you know how it works. And you're just like, oh, fuck, And if you're a serious smoker, you know to carry an empty pack in one pocket or a pack that's got a single cigarette in it. And that's the one that you pull out so that you flip the lid and you look at it like, oh, man, I want to hook you up. And you actually start to reach it for it and give it to him, but they always back down. This time I didn't have one, so I started to give the guy one. He takes it. And then all of a sudden he bends over and like one cigarette falls out from his jacket, and then another cigarette falls from his jacket, and then another, and it was like a fucking comedy skit. Like they just started raining goddamn shitty Lucky Strike cigarettes onto the pavement, and he looks up at me and he doesn't even have anything to say at that point. But anyway, stairways are full of human feces, this stuff happens, but now and then we would get, during the making of the game, we would get really zealous fans or just straight up local thieves. The first occasion, someone I think just kicked down an office window, went in and raided all these laptops and stuff, and we really weren't prepared for it, but subsequently we had tons, and we got tons and tons of security, as you'd expect, and that's when the break-in stuff started, or the attempt started getting a lot more interesting. We had one dude that we would just see every time we go for a cigarette would be out there hanging out with us, just asking us these weird questions, about the games we're playing, the games we like and stuff. Just make us feel weird, make us feel gross. And eventually that same dude started getting really pushy, and they noticed that he was a problem. So our office manager actually got him and walked him to the train and put him on the train and was talking to him and saying hey, I know you're trying to make your mark with our studio and stuff, but it's just really not the best way to go about it. Offered him all this advice, was really fatherly about it, and so we thought that was that, But then weeks later, we had just this crazy lockdown where that guy showed up again in Joker face paint and holding a pizza box, and he knocks on the door.
Is this after the Batman?
And I believe it or not, I think this was after the Batman theater thing. And Joker's never good anyway. You don't want to really encounter that.
No.
And so he's there with the pizza box, and he says something about a special delivery, and they recognized this motherfucker right off the bat, so they kicked him out, with the boot, and slammed the door, and he dropped the pizza box and bolted. So eventually they crept out the door and lifted the pizza box open, and there was a jar with dead insects in it. There was maybe a shoelace, a pair of Barbie panties or something, just the miscellaneous detritus of a completely disturbed mind, and then something about I don't even know, but something directed clearly and an ambiguous message that was nonetheless directed clearly at our creative director Ken. And that's when security got fucking crazy. It was clear at that point that we really needed to take it seriously. But then later on, we had yet another break-in. We had a time when someone got in, and it was clear that they had the keys. And at that point, like I said, our security was pretty extreme. So we had cameras and we had all this stuff, and we had a very clear picture of who it was. We knew exactly what they took and all this stuff. And everyone was warned about it. Be on the lookout for this. And a week later, the same guy shows back up, and we see him wandering around in the office. So we tell the office manager again, and he goes out and approaches the guy and asks him hey, can I help you? And the guy says that he's looking for a job, he's looking for employment. And John, of course, knows exactly who he is, because he's seen him, and so he says, we got just the thing for you. And he takes him in to where we take, he took him into our security station. And he pulls up on that computer, all of our employment paperwork and stuff, just for I don't know what. This guy thinks that he just robbed us, and he thinks he's going to become an employee or something.
He's smart.
But he's sitting there, and at some point, because the exact same monitor where he was taking his application, he's completing his application, would just automatically switch over to every security feed in the entire building. So he's sitting there doing this, and all of a sudden it switches over, and he sees this array of 1 million cameras showing every point of possible entry and exit. And certainly one of them was the one that he used, and he just this moment of awareness. He stands up and he bolts, But the reason that John set him down to do this was to hold him there for give enough time for the police to arrive.
So it was not even intentional that he saw this stuff. You guys
No.
showing
We
him,
were like,
now you know you're
we
folly.
Were just like, keep him.
You guys love the twists.
Keep this guy seated for as long as it takes for the Quincy Police Department to arrive,
which is a long time.
And
apparently.
it was like, he was about 30 seconds when he saw that and left a lead time on the police, and it was a canine unit. So he made it out the back, and I just heard the dogs barking and stuff. And I guess some people outside smoking cigarettes saw the dogs eat his butthole up, but they got him.
Jesus Christ.
That's all I gotta say.
That's your story about Bioshock Infinite.
Yeah.
Is that it? Are we done?
Yeah. Well, I mean,
I got a Berkeley story. Should I tell?
Yeah, Berkeley story. Let's hear it.
All right. So I live in Berkeley, California, and it's a pretty hippie-ish place. It kind of never evolved past 1979, and the people haven't either. So it's kind of ugly now. It's kind of a deadbeat city, but I love it. I live there, and anyway. Over the past few years, a lot of the medical marijuana dispensaries have opened because it's Berkeley. You know, like if I do a Google search from my house, the dots are like all over the place.
Why would you do that, Jeff?
Yeah, tell us about that.
Why I was Google searching? I was curious.
I'm just curious. Where's the marijuana
I have back
dispensary?
pain. Okay, so I was walking my dog down a street that we live by, which is a major Berkeley avenue. And I know there's a marijuana place about half a block up, and I see from a distance a guy standing up there with a protest sign. So I'm walking down the street with my dog, and when I get closer, the guy's holding a sign that says, boycott BPG, which is Berkeley Patients Group, racist. Okay? So I don't know what's the deal, and I was starting to walk past him. He was like, okay, so... To put it in context, this guy was like 28 years old. He's a white dude with dreads, of course. The typical Berkeley, like, trust fund asshole, like he had nothing better to do. So it was a Saturday afternoon, and I was curious, so I walked up to him and I asked, so what is the deal? Like, why are they racist? And he said, well, they're racist against the Hindu religion. So, there's like 5 things wrong with that sentence to start with. Which should have been my cue. Just, okay, have a nice Saturday.
You had to ask for more detail.
Well, I was curious. I was like, I don't know what that means. Like, what do you mean? Like, what's going on? And he says...
Don't sell Afghani indica strain? Is that where this is going?
Yeah, that's where it goes. Yeah, you ruined the punchline. Well, the first thing he says is like, it's not my job to educate you. Like, really angrily. Like, way to sell it. Yeah, great job protesting. Sign me up. So I said, it kind of is your job. Like, you're supposed to tell me what you're doing. He said, well... And I started to walk away, and I was laughing. I said, never mind. And he said, well, wait. He yells, like, did you actually want to know? And I said, well, not now. You're a dick. I don't want to know. So, he was like, oh, no, come back. But I didn't. And in the meantime, the 2 guards in front of the place, because, they have guards, you have to check that you've got your proper papers to get in. They were laughing because they saw this happening with me, and so they waved me over. So I came over, and they said, do you want to know what the deal is with this guy? And I said, yeah. And they said, he was actually a member of this marijuana clinic, and he had been inside earlier in the day, and they were selling a strain of marijuana called Hindu Kush.
Yeah, that was right.
So he was pissed off. He thought it was racist.
Yeah, that was like the Cleveland Indians or something.
Right, right. So that's what he's doing on Saturday. He was protesting like a brand of marijuana. It's like...
My favorite thing about like the legitimization of marijuana is how it maintains all these names that it's accumulated during its lawless past or whatever. Right. So you can go into a dispensary in a place where it's legal, and it's like going into a winery or something. They're like, the flavor profile of this AK-47. Raspberry notes.
Well, I work half the year up here at PopCap, and I found a magazine that somebody had at the office where there was an article on wine pairings with types of pot.
Jesus Christ.
And, I mean, it's legal here, so.
Yeah.
But I was like, man.
Disbelief, but like, it sounds just like the coffee you were ordering. It was like Klingon name. It's like, what was that? What was the one that you got, dude?
Dude, it's called Ethiopia. It's a country.
No. What was the name? What was the name of the coffee that you got?
I don't know. I mean, it was a Yurgachev single origin.
Oh, it was Ethiopia.
Yeah. Well, sorry. I don't know. You don't like coffee? Who likes coffee?
I love coffee.
It's okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Who likes
coffee? I'm on the side of the people.
Yeah.
I'm just saying weed deserves the same respect that your Ethiopian coffee
I
does.
agree. Yeah.
All right, let's get away from this. Should we talk about games a little? End this show a little?
I feel like people that are maybe just kind of wandered in here or friends of mine and that have wandered in, they're probably not familiar with the fact that GFW, despite being a part of a video game website, rarely talked about video games.
Yeah.
Just fair warning.
Well, I don't think we have to really reiterate our story too much. I don't know how much everybody knows this, but we never wanted to do this, right? I mean, that's just the truth. I mean, the mandate came down, all the magazines are going to have a podcast, and we were one of them, and we were just fuck you, we're not doing that. And we resisted. I think we were probably the last magazine to do it. Because we just felt like we had nothing to talk about. We didn't think that our personalities mattered, and that we just wanted to do the magazine. And plus, they weren't going to pay us any more money. I guess I should have said that first. So it was make the magazine that we're already not giving you enough resources for, and then also do the podcast. So we went down there and we just turned on the mics and we just basically complained. I did for a few weeks, and then that just sort of became the podcast.
I just remember Sean coming up to me and being like, "Hey man, you got to come on our podcast. Dude, the podcast, you got to do it. It's cool." Yeah, no, you're like the podcast, man. You got to come on. Podcast? Who the fuck listens to podcasts? That's
and
ridiculous.
Now you got how many Kickstarters?
I got no Kickstarters.
I know, man.
I know, man.
You got to be on my podcast.
We're announcing a Kickstarter today.
That's not true.
No, we're not. No, we're not.
I don't know. Let's do it. Who's got a laptop? If we can raise $50,000 in the next 45 minutes, I'm in.
But we were talking before we came in that after a while the podcast was all anybody ever remembered us for. After a while, it was the magazine kind of never existed.
It was kind of depressing because we were working on all that other stuff and no one ever cared about that.
That was the bulk of the work too. I mean, most of our week was putting together magazines.
Right, it was. I mean, that was our job.
Magazines were these things that sort of like the internet, but
they're like paper phones.
I mean, have we gotten there yet? I think that maybe it's a weird word to use.
Magazine?
Yeah.
Does anybody read gaming magazines now? Raise your hand if you read a gaming magazine, regularly, every month.
What the fuck? What do you read?
Okay.
It's a dozen.
That's quite a few.
I was at the airport and I saw Electronic Gaming Monthly and I was like, who? I didn't even know that was still around, much less that you get it in an airport.
But I don't think it's the same guys anymore, right?
Well, no. I mean, we know all the guys.
No, we got a vociferous head shake from a former EGM.
Everyone is here, actually.
Okay.
That's the whole audience.
Are they imposters?
Counterfeits?
Okay.
It's
weird. That's like we heard the other night here at PAX that there was a one-up party. And there were 10 of us at one-up, former one-uppers, all standing around and go, who the fuck are these guys? We thought we'd go there and be evil Jeff Green there and evil Sean Black.
Although I come to a thing like PAX and I miss the magazines, if only because I'm so lazy. Whenever there's an event and I want to know about the games that are announced, I'm like, can you just wrap this up into a couple of pages and give it to me a month from now and tell me the basics? I don't really want to delve into this like it's a research paper or something. I don't need to spend 8 hours.
That we used to be, I used to be the one that people would come up to in school and tell me about video games, all this cool stuff. Now I look for that person to keep.
Well, that's what Twitter is, right? I mean, that's kind of what
in a way,
is. Yeah. I mean, do you think that if somebody offered us, some angel investor came and offered us whatever, $5 million to restart the magazine?
I would do anything for $5 million. I would kill 10 people.
Okay, you don't count.
I don't care.
But would we want to do the magazine again?
Yeah, man. $5 million.
The magazine, monthly print magazine. Okay, not $5 million because we'd all do it.
I would do it as a Kinko's
$50,000 eyes just lighting up every time you mention monetizing.
I don't think people would read it. I'm not.
Who cares? It's $5 million.
Okay, I picked the wrong number. That's not the point. The point is would it be a worthwhile effort to make a monthly magazine? Would we be able to compete with
nobody would
websites?
read it, but if there's $5 million...
Okay, never mind.
Yeah. It wouldn't be worth it in that literally no one would read it. You would be the one who would read. You would be
that was my point.
Yeah,
This is why you don't want to get in the gaming press, because then when you get out of it, you're destined to a life of sitting in bed and coming up with these crackpot schemes.
$5 million Kickstarter.
I feel so out of it. Like Anthony is telling me about YouTube, like Let's Play people, which I'm aware of that. It's those guys who are like, hello, today we're gonna play Spelunky. Like, oh no, I died. Like, and he's telling me that these guys like make a lot of money.
Millions.
A lot of money.
Talking to you is sometimes like talking to my father, and we're like 4 years apart.
But I mean, in the back of my mind, I'm like, oh, I need to find out about this Twitch thing. I need to like I need to learn about this money making scheme to play video games, because I can play. I love Spelunky, and I can make my best like Howard Stern voice. I can be like, whoa, yeah.
Would you feel good doing that? Like it feels hard for me. Like I spent so much time like wanting people to not associate me with GFW.
Yeah.
And then as soon as it happened to the point where people are like, what the fuck's GFW? And I got all sad. Ooh, you never heard of it? But like, so it's hard for me to think about like, would you really be happy like running a Twitch channel?
I wouldn't be
like,
happy doing anything.
You're just not a happy
miserable person. Nothing makes me happy. It's all right.
So you might as well be disappointed and rich.
But if he made $5 million,
that'd be cool. I could afford a lot.
Forget the $5 million already. Jesus.
I'm just looking for the amount of money that will allow me to slowly kill myself with substances.
It's good to have ambition, Robert.
But you pointed to Sean like, yeah, Sean, tell us about this lifestyle.
Is that magazine on iPad? Or is
It could be a
store?
digital magazine. Sure, it could be digital.
All right, let's do it.
I don't know. I mean, the thing about the YouTubers and the people on Twitch is like I talked to one of the major publishers, somebody who works for them, the other day, and asked them if they thought that some of the major gaming websites, and it's not worth mentioning names because it doesn't matter, but all the obvious ones, if they mattered to them, and they said no. That actually what matters now are the YouTube kids and the Twitch kids. Like that's where the numbers are. And it's just kind of a frightening prospect for the press. I mean, because not to diss any of the YouTubers, I've watched the Let's Play stuff, and some of them are awesome, but they're not journalists. And their objective is...
How many years did you spend saying that people in the games press weren't journalists as well?
My whole career. But at least there was...
Yeah, people on TV news aren't... I mean, who is a journalist anymore? Nobody even practices journalism practically, unless you are like one of the people who subscribes to the New York
That's true
Times.
enough, but at least we tried to adhere to some form of objectivity.
Right. And
we tried to have some standards.
And if your like impropriety is uncovered, you stand to lose something.
Right, that's right. All we really had was our reputation, right? And these kids don't have a reputation, so it doesn't matter. And in some cases, they're actually getting paid by the companies they're covering. There are cases where they're getting provided the video feed ahead of time. They're getting early access to the game, so they're psyched about both those things. And they're making videos which are essentially, commercials or trailers for these games. And they're drawing humongous audiences. I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Yeah.
At all. I don't. But I think what's
just want a piece
the
of
frightening part. Yeah, I want. Please, someone give me a channel. No,
Yeah.
it's just. I think my point is just that when that's happening, why would the publishers ever want to work with the press again? That's what scares me. It's like the press. At some point they're going to say, we're not giving you guys anything because all you do is shit on us. So we're going to talk to these guys who give us, who will just say what we tell them to say.
Yeah. I mean, publishers will provide whatever the public demands, and the public doesn't demand, scrutiny from the press. And I think it's partly because everyone feels like in the modern media environment, we get it, right? We're all smart, and we watch these videos, and we're not influenced, and we follow people on Twitter, and they're not influencing us. I feel like that's how I feel, but then I also know that in this world, I'm being subtly dragged toward playing certain things when people are talking about the game that's coming out this week, and it's my friends or people that I respect on Twitter. I will sometimes just randomly buy a $20 game without thinking about it because somebody who I think is cool said it was good, and that's fine. But it's just really strange how uncritical I am after being such a idealistic person. About
I wonder, when you say the audience is sort of ignores, is unconcerned about scrutiny, if at this point there are several audiences for gaming coverage. Because I see in a lot of the popular blogs and stuff, there's a lot of concern about potential scandals and rumors of scandals, and you have many people who are very interested in finding something to be indignant about at any given time.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
sometimes it's like it makes perfect sense. People are upset about things that are legitimately disturbing or that like need to be addressed. And other times you see where it's kind of odd, where it's almost like it backfires. Like if you spend so much time pointing people to the fact that everyone's trying to screw you over and cheat to you and lie to you, and then that same audience starts to question if like the people who are telling you that you're being cheated and lied to are themselves cheating and lying to you. And then there's always that moment where they're like, what the hell? Like, why are they turning on us, I see a lot of that. And it's maybe because I'm on forums like NeoGAF a lot, but it seems like the level of skepticism and scrutiny throughout of enthusiast groups, at least the forum ones, has increased, if anything.
You think?
I think we all just want drama. Like, life is boring. We want to make, like, video games dramatic, you know? It's for people who are, like, spending all of their free time playing video games, I love video games, but, I mean, we have a cushy life.
Yeah.
Other people are like,
but it feels
damn, man,
good.
I can't pay the rent.
It can feel
and we're
really
like,
good.
Man, fucking Ben Affleck is Batman, god damn it.
Yes, exactly.
God damn it.
I mean, did the biggest insult, did you have someone in your personal life ask you if you were legitimately upset about that?
Oh, I did. I know.
And how did you feel? You're like, do you really think that low of me that I fucking care?
Actually, I bet Ryan cares. Ryan, do you care? What do you think about Ben Affleck as Batman? Now that we're on that subject.
I cared for 5 minutes.
I
got over it.
Are you pro or con?
Whatever.
2 years he had to prepare for this podcast.
Ryan Scott is a professional pundit, and half of his opinions on things are like, whatever.
Sorry.
You had an opinion. What is it? What is it really?
Well, I was mad, and then
So you were mad. Okay, that was your opinion.
I stopped caring.
So you're what I'm talking about. Like, because I think at large, I mean, like, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it feels good for people to have a cause, no matter what the cause is, at any given moment, to feel as though you can be angry about something. And that goes for us too, right? Half of the podcasts we did were just like, even us now, like, oh, there's this great fucking scandal, like, this isn't journalism and all this shit. And it feels good to be righteous at times, you know? So, and I think that goes for feeling that, like, Ben Affleck shouldn't be Batman. It goes for a number of things.
So are you saying we shouldn't be that way, or it's okay to be that way?
Maybe it's inescapable. Maybe that's all we are. Just a bunch of whiners and bitches.
That's the lesson we have for you today. Yeah.
We can't. I was going to say we can't talk about things that we don't want to whine and bitch about, though. Like, I think we all saw some cool games during their time here at PAX.
Yeah, I almost played a game. I waited in like 5 different lines today for 20 minutes at a time, and I was like, I think I'm about to play a game. And then
got really
like,
close to the
this,
Wonderful 101.
What was that?
That was exciting when we got really close to the Wonderful 101.
Oh, dude, we were so close. I watched so much of that game being played, and I was like, that looks great. And we were just on the cusp of playing it, and
it's hard. It's hard to play them here.
No,
Robert couldn't bring himself down to the level of the peasants.
Oh, that's not true. No, don't clap at that. Fucking don't clap. No. I mean, it's just hard to get into. It's so popular, this convention. Like, the indie stuff is crazy. Like, you could play a Nintendo game if you wait for 10 minutes, but if you want to play like something that someone's been making at their mom's house for 6 months, you got to wait for like 3 hours. Mm-hmm. It's crazy, dude.
It's kind of intense.
I think that's good, though, because it's showing that the stuff that's actually really unique and cool is getting attention. Yeah. Whereas, like, the shooter number 4 or something like that, something that maybe that we see and we're like, oh, that reminds us of this, this, and this. We can immediately think of things that it reminds us of. Yeah. We don't care as much about those. Maybe other people don't as much. Yeah. Whereas, like, these things that are, like, truly unique or getting attention, that's kind of what's special about PAX.
I also just think, like, the person who's making this game, the people who are making these games are standing there next to them, and you can talk to them. Like, if you like their game and you want to be like, it's like we all just recently played Papers, Please.
Such a good game.
Yeah, that
so
game,
good.
Yeah, and Lucas Pope, this guy who made this amazing, bizarre game, is just standing there. I mean, I feel bad for that guy. He's just standing there all day while people are playing that game at 5 minutes at a time.
It's not a particularly fun game to watch someone play.
No.
Yeah, it looks totally boring. Do you guys all know that game?
Yeah.
I think it's a testament to that game, though, that he can turn something that's like a desk job that we would all want to shoot ourselves if we had to do into like a game that we find totally awesome, and that it actually like kind of plays with your emotions at times where you're like determining whether or not to let one of your family members die and accept a bribe or risk the wrath of the government, letting someone in who has like a sob story. When I play that game, I'm a huge dick. Deny everyone.
Me too. I took that job seriously. I didn't want to get fired.
Just for background.
You don't have your ID, you're out. It's like your wife's sick, I don't care.
Just for background, in case no one had played this, it's the one person who hasn't played it apparently. It's a game where you play a border control agent in a fictional communist country during the Cold War, and they have opened up a border, and you're checking passports, and it sounds so mundane, and it is sort of mundane. Playing it has this weird. It's fun in the way that if you've ever had a terrible office job and you just have like an Excel file open and a Word file open and like a database and you're just doing this monotonous thing over and over again, but you're really fucking good at it. It's like that, except you're ruining people's lives. You're like crushing humanity under the wheels of bureaucracy by just clicking the mouse over and over again.
And there's intrigue because there's the option to become part of a conspiracy, and there's like repeat people that come up to the border and they always have the wrong documentation, and you can kind of laugh at their situation because they are actually funny written characters.
Yeah, and they give you a little bit of power. You're like a powerless person. You're living in public housing with your family, and they're all sick, and you can't pay the rent, and you need to like keep the heat on, but they give you like a couple of times to fuck up, and so you can use your power to persecute someone that you don't like. Like at some point early in the game, this woman comes through and says that the man behind her is planning on locking her up in some brothel or something, and can you please help her? And he comes up and all of his papers are correct, and you can totally be like, deny him entry and be like, you're a bad guy because she said so, and keep him out. And I did that.
And eventually they give you the option to detain people. And they'll pay you if you detain people. Like, you get money for sending people ostensibly off to be tortured, I imagine. Yeah. Which I did every chance I got.
There's an incentive to corruption.
Totally.
I need to play more. I played, like, what little I played. And I told you at the beginning, like, I was completely, like, enamored with the idea. I was like, this is remarkable that someone chose to make a game about this. And what I saw the game being about is, like, what in psychology is called attentional blindness, which is, like, if you're familiar with the classic often cited experiment where you have a basketball game that was recorded, and you ask an observer to count the number of passes that each team makes, and then during the course of this basketball game, a person in a gorilla suit passes by, and no one knows that the gorilla's there, because what they're doing is they're looking for the rule set. Very much like when you're playing this game, you're looking to see if their date of birth on their passport matches. And so I see the entire game about constantly teaching you something to pay attention to, and by doing so, creating more blind spots that you subsequently have to fill. And you always, like, at least in, like, whatever the 6 days or so I played, you find that where your blind spot was because you were looking for the last lesson, and then there's something else that was so fucking obvious, like their gender. You're like, oh,
I always blew that one, the gender one.
A woman on the ID, and then it's, But like when you mentioned like that, there's like these little moments like to get seek retribution or just like impose your will for whatever reason.
Yeah,
that brings me back to it, though.
I mean, you're empowered slowly through the game. I mean, you unlock the ability to detain. I think later on you can actually shoot terrorists.
I'm not sure. I know you get the ability to force people to be like, kind of. You can violate their privacy and search them.
Oh yeah. I mean, it was weird because it was during this NSA stuff, and there are moments where you're like, "Excuse me, you're a man." And the person's like, you deny it? And then they have to have their picture taken naked, and you get this weird Nintendo-looking printout of a naked person.
Like
it's really uncomfortable to look at.
That's the thing is it starts off cute, and it has really cute parts, and has parts you can laugh at, like I detain people all the time, haha. But at the same time, it actually does present like really challenging situations that actually kind of make you feel really bad.
Pretty early on, and this isn't really a spoiler to say, but I'm going to say it. It kind of you reach a point where you're like, okay, I'm not going to make enough money for my family to survive all of this stuff. At least that's how I felt. So I kind of was inventing backstories for some of my family members to like make me feel better for them dying.
Yeah, because
like, my uncle's like, he's an asshole. He's like drinking all the time, so he can go.
Because at some point you have to sort of pick and choose, right? I mean, you have to decide who to save.
Yeah, who you're going to give the medicine to.
Yeah, so say your uncle's dying, your son's dying, your wife's dying.
And my mother-in-law's a terrible cook, so
there you go.
I mean, I think part of that is just the game is about bureaucracy, and your family is reduced to a number. It's like the amount of money you're willing to spend on food and heat and medicine, and you don't ever see them or know who they are or anything. And the same thing with these people. You're not looking at the people. You're looking at their passport and whether or not the issuing city is correct.
That was the other thing that struck me is like I was becoming more familiar with like the characters passing through the booth than like the family, because the family really is just like mother and then a dot next to her name, and that's the extent of it.
I think it's amazing though. Like I think the world has changed so much since we did the magazine that we're actually up here all talking about this game. Like just the rise of these kind of indie titles. Like this did not exist when we were making the magazine. These games would have just been flash games or whatever that we would have ignored. And at a show like this, to see the crowds they're getting too. Like in the old days, these games would have been at Kentia Hall, right? And we would not have gone in because we would turn our press passes around so they didn't know we were press. So
not to mention, do you remember like Kentia Hall is a famous E3 like hall of weirdness.
You couldn't afford to go in the real hall.
It'd be like where they would sell bootleg PlayStation games, like right underneath the industry,
sex toys,
and like all the virtual reality stuff that never worked right. And now we live in a world where like the Oculus Rift is like the real deal, and like all these little indie games like run the world. Yeah. Which, by the way, I saw earlier at the show. I saw a man wearing an Oculus Rift, just standing next to the Cards Against Humanity booth with his baby, like.
And the baby was trying to pull the mask off.
His son was like crying and had his head on his shoulder, like, "Daddy, please, I just want to see your face. Please."
That was the most bizarre.
Please stop being in the virtual world.
Can you see anything? Why was it on?
I don't know. I don't know. I thought it was like performance art or something.
Maybe it was.
It had a camera
on it?
I have a camera like right inside my head, like two of them right here.
And the other game I think that all of us have played, the other indie game is Gone Home.
Like on that note, one thing I was going to say is like games like Paper Please. What they do
Gone Home
with what they do is they place importance on the act of playing. So like what I mean by that is like if you're engaged in Papers Please with just this like really mundane bureaucratic stuff, but for me to simply tell you, like if I were to tell you in writing that it just becomes a game in and of itself, and you stop seeing people, and you stop seeing misery, and you stop seeing like real world consequences to what you're doing, and it just becomes a matter of like min-maxing like your efficiency at doing this. As opposed to if I actually have you engage in it, and I let you do that yourself and realize that that's what's happening. It speaks to you in a different way. And I was like, just to go right back to Gone Home, I found that much of that game's power works in the same way. If someone were to tell me the story that Gone Home tells, through all of its various means, of diaries and audio, it really wouldn't impact me at all. I would think the characters seem really straightforward, unlike literature, people seem like really stable. And what I mean by that is like, in a really well-developed novel, the sense you get for a character is that they're unknowable in many ways. They're actually many different people according to the circumstance. Whereas in Gone Home, you have a fundamentally stable set of people. They're always the same. They always present the same face no matter who they're speaking to, no matter who they're interacting with. But because you play it, because you're interacting, because you're moving through the house and you're prying and you're snooping, the sense you walk, the story's able to move you in a way. One important part.
Hold on, just to back up, like to say, like Gone Home is a Steam game right now. It's like 1993 or 1994. Do you guys know what the date is?
Yeah, it's early 90s.
I think it's 1994. Right? I mean, it's for me. It's like the year that I like met my wife in high school, and it's really about someone in high school in the 90s in Portland,
Portland.
Yeah, like outside of Portland, and you're the returning big sister, and you're exploring this house, and all your family's gone, and everything's changed, and you're sort of catching up on the story of your family and your little sister, who has become kind of like a punk rocker, like riot girl, and it really has the flavor of is anyone old? And did you live through the 90s? There was we used to have guitars, and they sounded kind of bad, but people liked songs, and it wasn't so much the dome ba 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 boom ba boom. But they had it's about this time. And it really struck me on a personal level because when 1994, I was, had punk rock flyers all over my walls, and I had my pink up hair, and I liked a lot of that same stuff. It was very strange to see that represented in a game. I never expected in my life to see that kind of stuff. And although, this game is about a girl like discovering that she's a lesbian.
Way to spoil it.
Wow. But then she discovers that she's actually straight, which is really weird. It's like zigs right back at the end. She's like, "Oh, but I really want to date the quarterback," and I didn't see that coming at all.
Okay, thanks for that good recovery there.
Yeah. Okay, good. Yeah.
Well, a lot of time I saw one of the things the criticisms I saw online afterwards when I was trying to like read up and see what other people thought was like, "Oh, I figured it out too quick," and then I was like, So, like, is it really like? Does everything need to have like a crazy twist? Like, is it? It's okay for a game to be something that sort of unfolds slowly and just has detail.
Yeah. To me, I could be off, but what I sort of thought part of the point was it was almost kind of a deceptive thing from the start. Like the presentation of the game and even some moments in the game feel almost like it's going to be a horror story, right? Like you kept waiting for something.
Like the reason why the game works.
Right, because
like
you find a secret passage and then you think, and there's even an allusion to like she thinks there's ghosts in the house.
Right.
So for a while you think you're following that kind of thing, but it's sort of like at every turn it's like actually it's just something totally mundane.
Right.
So really there's no...
People could plug their ears if like that you haven't finished.
Yeah, sorry
it, like,
if we're doing this.
Yeah. When I say it specifically works for that
The boss
reason.
fight is fucking stupid.
And when why did you have to make that played out ass joke? No, it's like that sense of doom and the sinister element that's building up and building up.
Yeah.
Is specifically what is responsible for the emotional reaction people have at the very end. I think when people talk about crying and stuff, I think there's nothing really so much in the subject matter that quite earns that as just the relief of not finding
what
the
you're
worst
worried
case
about
scenario and being just happy that a game was content to tell a happy ending story. But it really,
But I would
really
say that's
earns
part
by convincing you the entire time that it's going to.
But
be a
I mean,
tragedy.
I think in that way, like it's a linear story, but along the way, because it has this feeling of dread, and sometimes leads you on to believe things might be happening that aren't happening. You imagine the story going off in this direction that it doesn't. You imagine, that maybe this character might kill themselves, or maybe this person's marriage is over, or whatever. You imagine the terrible possibilities. In the end, it turns out great. But I think what's interesting is even though it's a linear thing, you imagine the terrible possibilities because it has this foreboding.
And it's physically there. It's in the attic the entire time, and you don't know what's in the attic.
Yeah, and and the whole time you think it must be. I mean, I think early on I thought there was going to be some weird time traveling plot or something. I did because there's this thing. Anyway,
dude, all the stereotypes we used to tell about you smoking pot, just like right there.
Yeah. No comments.
And for those who haven't played and might be worried, like, we just spoiled everything, like, I knew going into the thing that it wasn't going to be a supernatural twist. So, and it didn't really ruin the experience for me, so it's still worth playing.
Yeah. Actually, there was a lot of controversy, though, because it got so many good reviews in the press. But it does cost, is it $20? Is that what we paid? 20? Yeah, $20, and it's quite short.
Yeah.
Then
like
you're
a
getting
movie.
into the dollars per hours proposition, and then just
There's
like
that, and then there's
that.
also the is it a game or is it not a game? Because in some ways it's not a game the way Titanfall's a game, obviously, but that's made by EA, by the way.
Yeah.
Well, if this had been like a movie or a Lifetime movie or something, which a lot of people like to compare it to, it would have been the most trite, sort of average story. But because you're interacting, because you're playing it, like I feel like I was happy that I played it. I don't know if I would have been entertained if it had not been something I was interacting with.
Well, they kind of like tricked us or forced us into watching a Lifetime movie, right? It's like we would never read that story if we knew what it was, but we kept thinking there was going to be something awful happening. But the fact that nothing awful happened was so cool. I think in both the case of this game and Papers, Please, it's like we played games that just don't sound like any fun at all, and yet they proved to be two of the most, compelling games of the year.
It's important that there's so little. Traditionally, there's been so little variety in the content of gaming.
Right.
That, like, if you look at movies or books, this type of story is all over the place. To the credit of those formats, that you don't have people that are just desperate to find themselves. And I remember thinking about this, how. And I think it's terrific that so many people have been able to play this game and finally feel that there's a game that spoke to them. And it occurred to me that I still personally haven't played that game. I've never played a game where I really, really identified with it. And I think that is a problem. I immediately jumped to, kind of like, the most influential books, novels and works of fiction I've ever read have been about people who I am not. They've taken me, they've shown me what it is to be someone else. And so for me, Gone Home was very much that. It let me know a little bit about what it's like to be a teenage lesbian. But I don't like it. My goal in critiquing art has never been, is this about me? Is this just reaffirm every bias I have? Does this just tell me? Is this finally showing someone what it's like to be me? And of course, I'm privileged because the story of me being a white male is readily available everywhere. So I completely.
You're a pretty weird one, though.
I completely understand that,
Yeah.
And I think that it's just sad that it's good that games like this are coming out and that are expanding the scope of what game content can be about.
Right.
But it's also telling that it's like it is so contracted and there's so little variety that it can be that remarkable. When
the language of the gaming industry and of games has been so limited, and we saw a lot of that on the show floor too. Especially from the major publishers. It's just, and like I was saying to Sean earlier, it's like we walked by the splash damage game. What's that called? Right, Extraction. And like, I don't. It could be great. I don't know. But just seeing it, I was just like, oh God, not again. It was just like, just looked like another multiplayer shooter of guys shooting guns at each other. And it could be a great version of that. And in fact, maybe I'll play it. But it was just in the context of having spent an hour in the mega booth, where there's just one interesting idea after another. The game about the cancer game is in there. Thank you. Right.
The cancer game.
Well,
I like your cancer game.
Yeah, and the nightmare ones. I'm so bad with names. I'm old.
And you guys know a lot about video
based
games.
on the developer's actual experience dealing with his own mental illness. And that stuff is kind of mind-blowing when it's next to a game of people shooting as giant robots.
Yeah. Sometimes
Titanfall available soon.
Sometimes I think it's just like if you grow up playing games and you get to a certain age where you've done that for a long time, it's like food. When you're a kid, you love sugar and salt and fried things, and that's because those things are the best things. But you eat that stuff for years and years, and suddenly you're like, man, I'm kind of, I've had
Unless
all
you're
that.
Ryan, and
you're like, you know what I
eating.
like? I like bitter. I like the complexity of things that taste almost like shit. It's like
Well,
You're kind of on your own there,
you can
Robert.
have it all, though.
I like something
about
fermented for years. But after a while, your stuff kinks out. It's like sex or music or anything else. You get bored with all the pathways in your brain that normally light up. You're like, this is boring. It's not doing it for me. I need to kink it up a little bit, make it weird. I only listen to music if the song's like 20 minutes long, and I
always personally think of this as like the Genghis Khan syndrome, where it's like, imagine you've got this like giant harem, and sex just becomes so boring that eventually you're upside down being whipped by like yak hides one day, like because you need to mix it up, and it happens with no matter what it is, music or gaming, like every food, Like
How often do you guys clear your history?
Yeah, I mean,
So, I feel like you can have it both ways, because like we're playing Gone Home and Papers, Please, which have like the serious said. Like the other game I've been switching between constantly is Saints Row 4, which is like
Before we move over, I just was like, I'm going to do my typical things. Like a couple of questions I want to ask you and points to make about Gone Home. Like one, how did you guys go about, like, to what extent do you think you played the character that you were cast as? Like, how did you
that character was weird because it was about like the sister, like the character you're walking around as.
Right.
It was a bit of a cipher, so I didn't really learn a whole lot about that sister.
Right.
I mean, sorry, didn't learn a lot about me.
Did you leave lights on in rooms? Did you throw items that you knew you no longer needed to review into the floor?
The first thing I did was turn on every light in the house.
Did you open drawers in a certain order, like top to bottom, bottom to top? Leave them open after you?
Probably. Yeah, I did leave myself visual
every
clues
doorknob
to
twice.
figure out if I had been there, but that was more like an adventure game mapping kind of way to handle it.
Yeah, what I'm getting at is specifically theyese behaviors they're what burglars, they're what homebreakers use. If you look into it, and I'm not one, I've had my home broken into, but the order in which you go through drawers, the way that you leave certain things on, the things that you throw into the floor, and I realized halfway through the game that I was role-playing a burglar in my own home. And it was just one of those things. It wasn't just like, fucking Steve Gaynor was dissing on my Ludonarrative dissonance, like, I got you. It wasn't like that, but it was just like, it was curious, It's like, yeah, even given this, the fact that I want to know that I've searched everything. I developed a search algorithm.
Yep.
And it governed how I approached every room. And the curious thing was that it was nothing like a sister returning to her family's home.
Mm-hmm. Right. She wouldn't have gone through every single drawer.
Right. But it did have context for it because it was the home that your family moved into while you were gone in Europe.
Would you treat it like that?
So, I mean, I would turn every light on in the house because I'm scared of the dark.
Dad's weed stash?
I mean, no, but
I mean, realistically, like 10 minutes into the game, you would have called the cops. You know, I mean,
probably so.
Probably.
Yeah. I mean, it's strange, but I mean, there are worse conceits in games. I mean, there's constantly like things don't feel real in games, but we accept them in the same way that they don't feel real in movies. It's
Did
like
you guys
never
ever
see anyone like go to the bathroom in the movie.
Yeah,
you know, you never. There's
also
all this,
people walk away from conversations. I started noticing that. You know, like they'll have a conversation and then the last person will get that dramatic line in, and then they walk away. Like no one does that in real life. You would say, "Okay, we'll see you later."
And on those lines, I'm not suggesting that it's a fault of the game and that it's not a problem, and it's just a sort of a curious thing to note, and that how for most people you don't even consider it. So certainly we can have a lot of like so-called dissonance in our games. And it's immaterial. It doesn't matter.
Right.
So that was interesting to me. Another thing is, did any of you wonder what, and again, this is not suggesting that Gone Home should have been the game I'm about to describe, but did you just have the mental exercise of considering what if this game was set right now, say it was 2013, and there were PDAs and that there were computers in the house?
Oh, yeah,
and,
no, I didn't.
And I'm not suggesting that the entire thing should happen, like cyber sleuthing should happen through, virtual simulations of being on Google and looking at search histories or like one by one acquiring email passwords and every other bit of evidence we leave. But just as a part of the whole, and the way that like the Amazon purchasing history would have to do with the items that are in the house, and the way that like now, just in the 20 years since the time that game was set in, how much of who we are exists, through our actions and behaviors online, as opposed to the things that we stuff in our drawers. And,
right.
And
Which
the
is probably why they said it
story
back
you
then.
could tell. But one, it was certainly cost effective to avoid all that.
Yeah.
And it would make it a different game, but I just like, I'm curious, like if you think about...
I mean, it's the same thing in like, I feel like in movies, people have such a hard time incorporating phone calls and texting and stuff.
Yeah.
And you see people experimenting with that. Like, I just recently saw the movie, this is such like not a cool movie at PAX, but I saw Before Midnight, which is part of a romantic trilogy of movies.
That was a great movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love that movie, and it has amazing use of phones and texting in it. It doesn't do that cheesy shit where it like pops up with the text message with like fancy fonts and stuff and is all technological. It's just someone's looking at their phone. You don't really know what's going on. Like there are people who participate in the movie who are only like the son. I don't know. I can't explain this entire movie, but there's a character in the movie that is only present really as someone on the phone. You never hear them. You never read their texts or anything. But this is how like we operate now, and it's very hard to put that into movies, and it's hard to put it into games because we don't live in reality anymore. We live in all times and all places. It's
but in
very
a game that is entirely in the past tense, where you're basically an archaeologist of the home, and more specifically of the contents of a person's mind, and the events in their past, that's when these things become... You're doing detective work, right? Your detective work is where's my sister's heart? How did it get to where it's at? And I think those become very relevant and not mechanical. We think it would be boring to, and I think the other thing about it is the potential. And I really hope. I love the Gone Home crew, and I hope they even consider this in a subsequent like game. It's just the extent to which I talked about before about, I'm not saying we're all two-faced or duplicitous, but the extent to which we're all many, many people according to different circumstances and times. And I think that really comes out when you look at the broad range of things we're dealing with. Like Anthony, right now, you're Anthony from podcast, and like minutes prior to this, you're texting on your phone. Who knows what that's about, It's like you're having a conversation with your dad and you're one Anthony. You're having a conversation with a woman and you're another. Like, all those, I think, are absolutely ripe for exploration in the game,
I think the game approached that a little bit.
I just think that maybe the reason... I think maybe for them it was also partially mechanical, just because it's... Nowadays, my phone probably would tell you like all those things about me and stuff in one spot. Whereas like this gave them the ability, setting in the 90s, that we used to actually write notes to each other in high school, so they could plant that as a collectible in one spot.
And there's certainly something about the tangibility of like someone drawing something by hand and leaving notes. So that was like the first thing I said is I by no means suggest replacing all of that.
Yeah.
Just complementing it. And it would be boring as hell if you sat for an hour
just with the
through a
phone.
virtual simulation of someone's desktop. But if it's like there's a million ways. I mean, Lord knows you can gate a computer far more easily than you can gate a house with secret passages and stuff, you know?
I mean, I actually think that a game that just looks like Windows, like you just open it up, it's Windows, and here you are, you're at someone's computer, start looking around, like look in the browser, see what's been going on. I mean, I think that could be amazing.
Yeah, I mean, think of detectives like doing on a murder case right now. They have to understand.
Sounds awful.
Yeah.
I would never play that.
5 minutes.
What if
5 minutes?
Saying that now.
Oh, we should do questions.
We just started the
5
party.
minutes.
5 minutes.
I just wanted to bring up one thing just quickly. There was a question when you were just talking about, dissonance between real life or not. Did you guys ever like drive safely in any of the GTA games?
No. For like the first 4 hours.
Like I'm just gonna like drive along behind this guy.
Yeah. I fell into that in
That's dissonance, right? To play by the social rules.
That's what I mean.
Yeah. The rules of the
right.
game.
Yeah.
Like instead of just like running everybody down and not giving.
Well, some of it's also like I don't want my police meter to go up, so I'm not going to hit anyone. Like that's real gamey. That's like that's the reasoning I give myself.
Sometimes I just felt like I should be on the right side of the road. That's the rule when you drive.
Yeah.
And so
I just felt guilty, so I did.
You need to get into role playing San Andreas, man. You could be a cab driver.
Yeah. I just want to say the one last thing about Gone Home is I was playing that game and I was really into it, and then I was playing it at the computer and my wife came and sat behind me towards the end of the game. And it's funny how someone overhearing your experience like makes you feel suddenly self-conscious, because it was during the most like emotional parts of the game.
Yeah,
and she didn't know. No, I didn't have headphones, and she's like overhearing. She's like, fuck are you playing? Like,
yeah, that happened at home too.
Because it's the dialogue. It's like, oh my god, I can't believe how amazing it is to be in love. And she's like looking over at me like, what are you doing? And I'm looking at like high school love notes and stuff.
You should be shooting aliens.
The context is different there, man. It's like a pedo simulator in that case.
On that note, do people have questions? We kind of blew it.
2 minutes.
We have 2 minutes.
Questions?
Well, I don't know if we can go over or not. I think this is the last.
There's a mic. This guy would raise his hand, so he wins the question. Better be good.
One question.
Forums.
I think I could finally have a kid and like not worry about
Get a
it.
job.
Yeah, like I wouldn't be so worried about them stumbling onto the terrible things I've done in the past. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know. It's weird. Does stuff on the internet go away? I mean, I know it does.
I think it would really suck. I think it would be a shame. I think there's a lot of good blog posts up there, not just from the people who got paid, but from all the people on the staff. I thought it was a great community at the time. I think it'd be horrible if it went down. Mm-hmm. And I'm really grateful for all the people who have done the archives and that kind of stuff. I mean, there's a whole archive of every issue of our magazine going back to 1982 when it started, so it's crazy.
If you're from the forums, I'd say you already know it was a bummer when like all the forum history was erased. I mean, there's still things that I wish they were there so I can point someone to, because they make me laugh just like remembering them, but like just completely gone. Yeah, Ideal Poster being one of them. Who?
Versus Pi?
That was more of a Nick Sutner thing.
Oh. Where's Nick Sutner? Is he around?
Wasn't there like a nasty, like particular board that we had to close down, right?
Yeah, the off-topic board was always like controversial and problematic, but it was, I don't know.
In some ways, I feel like we've already experienced that in the like the magazines. Like all the work that I worked hard on went into magazines that now like aren't around. It's not like you can find that stuff.
Right.
Yeah. It's not. I didn't do much on the web.
At least I have all of those in a box. Like if the archive went away, like I haven't gone through and saved all of my stuff, you know. Like
the thing
on
that
a personal level
is a shame is that we used to have this gigantic PC gaming library that was started when Johnny Wilson started the magazine. It's the stuff going way back to the PC games that were in plastic baggies in the early 80s, and that stuff got just destroyed.
I'm partially responsible. When we were doing letters, I would like piecemeal take out like cloth maps and shit and use them to incentivize like deviant behavior on the forums. Like,
oh shit!
So
Is there another question or anything, or can we do that, or should we wrap it up?
We should probably
wrap it up light. I don't know. Well,
no one's telling us to leave.
Yeah.
Unless you guys don't want to leave. Keep going?
Okay, keep going. Well, we'll leave the mic open if somebody gets inspired, but
there's nothing.
We're going all
if you have questions,
night.
If you have a plane to catch, we will.
You can leave if you have to or want to.
Okay. Say
hi.
I was just curious because I know that Robert has a lot of wasted.
Very wasted. Hooray for me.
An excellent podcast.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm curious if it's still possible that, like, you know, one day, not necessarily back together and like start it up again, but like the side projects that you're doing, like, is there any more momentum to like set another thing up like that? So, like,
we do sometimes talk about it. I mean, we all like each other, and we like talking together. Mm-hmm. It's mostly been like logistics over the past few years. We all have jobs and families, and all five of us live in different states.
I haven't had a job since 2002, but okay.
Well, whatever. But we're really we're all over the place. So even when we've tried to do like Skype podcasts together, we're talking different time zones. It's just kind of a pain in the ass to get us all in the same place.
And
Oh, the wreck of the Medusa. Yeah. It's like one hard thing is like what makes any good podcast work is just repetition, which is like you practice every week so you don't get rusty. Like even this, like it's so many. I asked these guys, I dreaded it because I was like, I haven't been doing this in so long. It's like I've been entirely.
We practically had to drag them up here.
But you get habituated to doing it, and you become a performer. So, one, you develop skill just through repetition, and then the proximity is important. Like, you're all together in a room, you're all together in the building every week. You just develop that camaraderie, and it's like we have to. Like, it was important for us to spend a few days together before we even got here, just to catch up, because we've been so far apart. But like we do. I would never write anything off. There's It's conceivable, I'd say.
It's
theoretically
conceivable.
For $5 million.
Right.
We were like saying like, what if there was a Kickstarter? We were bouncing things around like one reward could be Sean does a whiskey nerd for your answering machine.
This is for Jeff's Kickstarter.
No. Maybe.
About that yet.
Yeah.
Well, I think what this whole podcast, even though we go off on 900 random tangents, it's ostensibly about games, and like Sean being at Irrational and me being at Blizzard, we're kind of in unique positions where we can't have those like open, frank conversations that we would want to have all the time. Like we can do this occasionally when there's topics.
And there's an opportunity cost. You cannot do both.
Right, exactly.
You can do one or the other, and
So-
you choose what's most important to you based on the time.
And I'm guessing that's kind of where Out of the Game kind of was born out of. Like,
That's
let's
right.
do something that isn't about games.
Right, because
but-
we just couldn't. I mean, there's at least three of us up here who can't really talk about, the stuff we're working on or say anything bad about the company or bad about any other company. And, so we don't talk about it. And
at times you don't even know. You might get burned. And the source could be, you have no idea. And sometimes it could reach out of nowhere and silence you.
Oh, yeah.
And it's happened to me repeatedly. So it's like...
It's a shame for me because I've got nothing but good things to say about EA. So if they would just let me talk about them, it'd be awesome. Let me free.
Yeah, but I think you guys think we should wrap it up, right?
Yeah, we should wrap it up. We should let everybody go home.
Yeah.
And thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks to everybody.
Very much for
thank
coming.
you. So, yeah, you saved us the embarrassment of an entirely empty room, so have a great Monday.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, everybody.